We now bring in senior ESPN NBA writer Ramona Shelburne. So excited to have her on the show. And Ramona, everyone's reaction to this trade was shock, right? Disbelief. I mean, when star players are involved, there's usually a little bit of information that leaks out beforehand. Not this time. How does a trade this big stay hidden until it actually happens?
I mean, I think this is everyone involved being very close. This is sort of family business between Lakers general manager and general manager of the Mavericks, Nico Harrison. They both were very close to Kobe Bryant. Nico Harrison was his Nike rep for 10 years. Rob Pelinka was his agent. They traveled the world together. And I think when you trade a star of Doncic's magnitude, you have a choice. Do you want to open this up to the rest of the league and take offers? And the downside to that is, well, once Luka knows that you're thinking of trading him, it's kind of hard to get him engaged back in the season. It could really ruin what you're doing. And I think that, we've seen the spectacle and the circus play out with a lot of different trade situations, whether it's De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento, whether it's Jimmy Butler in Miami, whether it was the first Anthony Davis trade from New Orleans to Los Angeles. And I think, when you have situations like this, it's a choice to open it up and have a circus or keep it closed and pick the trade you want with the trade partner that you've targeted. And the Mavericks have always really liked Anthony Davis. There's another family relationship. Nico Harrison was also his Nike rep when he came from Nike. And Jason Kidd was the associate head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers when they won a title in 2020 with Anthony Davis. And so they know the guys involved, and they just decided, let's keep it between us. And that's how it doesn't leak. I mean, I've never seen a trade like this. I've been doing this 20 years. And we all hit Shams last night and said, did you get hacked? Like, are you in possession of your phone? Because even the follow-up tweet where he said, this is real, I was like, yeah, that's what a hacker would say. It's unbelievable.
And yet, if you're a Mavs fan, Ramona, is it a little frustrating that you could have potentially have gotten a lot of young talent for this player had you actually opened it up to other offers?
Yeah, I think Mavs fans are going to be pretty upset for a while, but I would urge them to remember that nobody was in favor of them trading for Kyrie Irving when they traded for him. A lot of people thought they gave up too much when they traded for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington last year, and they went to the finals last year. And Kyrie Irving has been a model of consistency ever since he got to Dallas. And so I think, this is Nico Harrison, who is a longtime executive at Nike, had great relationships with star players. That's why, Mark Cuban initially hired him and thought he'd be good at this job. And other teams had tried to land him as a general manager because when you trust your gut on relationships and with people that and I think he really had that in this situation. And I think with both their assessment of Luka Doncic and why they were willing to part with him, but also in why Anthony Davis was the target for them in replacing him. And let's see how this works out. I mean, I look at their starting lineup and I go Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis. Like, that's going to be an amazing basketball combination. Now, they're both in their 30s. It's not going to be a long-term play, but they're in this win now mode. And I think if you want to use a stock market analogy, this is shorting on Luka Doncic. This is saying, Luka's still 25. He's in his prime. He's still amazing. But clearly they didn't have as much faith in him long-term. And if you are about to pay somebody $350 million, you want to have faith in them long term.
Yeah, and that was the report, right, Ramona, that Dallas was uncomfortable offering Luka the Supermax contract in the summer, but they were also unhappy with his conditioning. But is conditioning enough a reason to give up on a player who's a top 5 NBA talent and has made 5 straight all-NBA appearances?
I mean, it's not just conditioning, it's conditioning which leads to injuries, right? And injuries mean availability. And, we talk a lot about Joel Embiid and his availability. We talk about Zion Williamson and his availability. Well, how much of those injuries are tied to extra weight? How much of those are tied to conditioning and playing yourself into shape? And, it's Luka's 25, but, when you don't have a great track record in that department, does that lead to more injuries as you get older? I mean, I know I'm 45 and I get, I used to be able to stay up all night. Like last night, I was up pretty much all night and got 3 or 4 hours of sleep. And, I can't just bounce back like I used to in my 20s, right? And so, I think there's a recognition that long term, if this is going to be the face of your franchise, you got to really trust him and trust in that, and especially when it's going to cost $350 million. This is also, Jay. This is really about the new collective bargaining agreement, which allows for these supermax contracts. I mean, they didn't used to be able to be this expensive to keep a player like that. And while Luka at his best is absolutely worth all that, he has to be available. And the Lakers are willing to take that bet because he is a top 5 player. He's an MVP candidate every single year, as long as he's healthy. And they're taking that bet on the future of their franchise. The Mavericks didn't want to. It's as simple as that.
Having cited all of Luka's shortcomings, Ramona, do you feel like the Lakers definitely won this trade on Saturday night?
Right now, yeah, because what did they really give up? They don't have to pay him $350 million. They can pay him 5 years, $229. That's a $116 million loss that Luka Doncic faces now because he was traded. Because you only get that 354, I guess it was. You don't get that unless it's with the team that drafted you. And so that's a lot of money that costs him. Now, there's ways he can make some of that back up if he does a 3-year deal, et cetera, and then does another extension. But it's not as big of a jump for them. And it's also Anthony Davis is in his 30s. And so they were going to have to pay him a lot of money, even though he's under a long-term extension. He's only probably 5 to 8 years more in the league if he's 32. So for them, this is a bet on the future. And I think right now you would say, yeah, they won. I mean, they're going to have to go out and get another center. They're going to have to do some work. They have to, keep improving the team as we head towards the trade deadline. But it's a really interesting question going forward of how Luka and LeBron play together, or do they play together? I mean, my understanding of LeBron is that he likes LA and wants to spend the rest of his career here, but I think he assumed he would have Anthony Davis. and let's see how this fit is on the basketball court. They're remarkably similar players in that they both need the ball. They're both, sort of point forwards. LeBron's been playing off the ball a bit more this year, but I don't know. It's like having two of the same superstar in the same team. I don't know how it's going to work. And so we'll see what they do. I know they're going to miss AD. They really liked him. They thought he was an incredible person and fit defensively, and they'd been playing through him on the offensive end this year. But you can't say no to this deal.
Okay, there's another massive deal Sunday in the NBA. Ramona, I got to ask you about this one. De'Aaron Fox. We knew he was available from the Sacramento Kings. He heads to San Antonio to team up with Victor Wembanyama. This was Fox's preferred destination.
Yeah.
Are you surprised at all that this deal came to fruition?
I'm always surprised when something big actually happens because so many of them, they're just hard to pull off. I mean, these are guys making a lot of money, and you have to make the salaries match, and you have to find willing partners and et cetera. And I think it's hard to do that, under the pressure and under a deadline. But Sacramento clearly just decided that they were ready to do this. They, I thought initially when that story leaked that they were frothing the market, saying, okay, we can do it now, or we can just see which offer we like the best and see if we can make it happen. Zach LaVine is a player that they've liked for a while, so that's their return here. And he's, got a lot of years on his deal left, and he's a very good player. He's having a good season, which we wouldn't have said a couple years ago. And so I think you could look at that and say that's a bit of a lateral move, especially for a guy who, for De'Aaron Fox, who they might have lost after next year. But it's always surprising when something big really happens and a guy gets to exactly where he wants to go.
ESPN senior NBA writer Ramona Shelburne, we loved having you on the show. Now go get some sleep, okay? Yes, and I know Ramona's going to be busy on Thursday because the trade deadline in the NBA is Thursday, and we have the trade deadline special for you right here on TSN beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Will we have llamas and the types of things that James Duthie likes to add to Trade Center? I don't know. You'll have to tune in to find out.